Welcome, everybody, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Mondays with Maishi. It is November 11th, 2024, and we're deep into season 5 of Mondays with Maishi. And why am I mentioning that? Well, because Eliot Kaplan, I think you have at least a 1.5 times per year record or 1 time per year record on the show. You're definitely the most featured individual. And what's interesting about it is that the topics never changed. No matter how many times you're featured, we're always talking about the same topic. And can you tell us if there's a reason behind that? Why is that? I know the reason
That's
behind it.
because we're all trying to figure out what we're doing and try to explain exactly what we think we're doing. And I think that in my view, I think that paradox kind of encapsulates really what therapy is really about. I see paradox as an umbrella therapy that actually encompasses CBT and behavioral and IFS and EMDR. It's like all the therapies really come under a paradoxical umbrella if
Hmm.
you really understand what you're looking at.
Well, Dr. Kaplan, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do if you say that paradox encompasses CBT and EMDR and EFT and whatnot. I mean, those are vastly different uh, modalities and forms of therapy, and you're somehow saying that the paradox, what I call the communication of paradox, somehow incorporates and includes or encompasses all those things. So let's just do a little intro. Dr. Eliot Kaplan, tell us who you are and your fixation and obsession with paradoxical interventions. And then we're going to talk a little bit, tonight. I know that we focused on so many different aspects of paradox and our perspectives of how it works. And I think tonight, I'm thinking about focusing on some of the various um, paradoxical interventions that you enumerate in your book, Paradox Psychology. If I'm not mistaken, I always remember two, which is prescription and prediction. And I know that you have some others. And I think I would love for you to enumerate the various paradoxical interventions, but that will come hopefully after we just give another overview of what we're seeking to accomplish in the paradoxical work. So, as people are joining, I just want to remind everybody the following housekeeping things. Number one, if you have a question or comment, you're going to want to use the React button on the bottom of your screen. That's now changed. It used to be reaction, but as we get more chic and sleek, they cut the reaction word to react, and we're supposed to figure that out. And you'll click on the raise your hand tab, the raise your hand button, and you can raise your hand and we'll call on you gladly. Those of you who could turn on your videos, we greatly appreciate and encourage video participation. So we have some real live energy in the room. So please do. Thank you, Shalom. And I do want to remind everybody that Mondays with Maishi, as for quite a while now, is sponsored by the following two sponsors. The first is OKclarity.com. Many of our participants have already signed up for websites or featured pages on OKclarity.com with very happy results. OKclarity.com is a website that will host your information, host your website, and this way you can feature yourself and what you do. And besides the practice that you might have, if you do other speaking engagements or public presentations or whatnot, there's just a vast array of information that you could share on your OK Clarity page to promote yourself. And I think it's a wonderful thing. It's the only website out there that focuses on the Jewish community, therapists within or for the Jewish communities, therapists and other health professionals, not just psychotherapists. So you definitely want to take a look at their website and reach out to them and consider creating your own page. We're also sponsored by OfficeStreamline.com, which is a website that has virtual secretaries who will do much of your clerical work, such as scheduling and returning phone calls and all that. And this way, it saves you the time. If you sign up for 1 month And it saves you a couple of hours a week. It saves you time to be able to see more client hours and get paid at your client rate, your clinical rate, rather than having to spend that time on returning phone calls and doing some of the other things that we therapists really don't appreciate or love doing. So, Israel, Elliot, you've been focusing, and again, you and I know each other for close to 15 years. I spent many, many years learning the skills and the concepts. And to be honest with you, it took quite a while to really uh, appreciate the depth of and the simplicity of the intervention and the depth of how it works, these paradoxical interventions. And I think it's due time for our audience to get some more exposure to how this works, why it works, and like I said earlier, some of the various interventions that come along with paradoxical therapy. And so tonight, besides our discussion, we also have some exciting video presentations that we will share so that people can actually sense and feel the intervention firsthand. Then you can explain and describe what it is that's going on. So just give us a brief overview of what paradoxical interventions are and how they work as a general rule.
So basically, paradoxical interventions are they're very, very simple, and I think because they are so simple, people tend to try to make it more complicated than it actually is. And in terms of my own interest in paradox, my own background is in Gestalt therapy. I have training in Gestalt therapy. I was always interested, like Fritz Perls he'd be working with a client, and we have the Gloria videos, and there's one point where she's nervous and she's shaking her leg, and he says, the assumption is he would say, "Oh, you're nervous, calm down, take a deep breath, relax." That's what you would expect he would do. He doesn't do that. What he says is, "Oh, you're shaking your leg, shake it more." Right? Which is counterintuitive. If you're trying to help the person calm down, why would you tell them to shake it more? And in the process of her shaking it even a little more, it came out that it was an action of a kick, and somehow she said she was trying to kick him. I think there was a point that she said something like that, but the energy in her leg was an expression of what was going on inside, and rather than squelching that energy, in paradox, we might ask the person to exaggerate it, to let it out. Now, if you think of that process of what happens when you ask somebody to exaggerate an energy, what you're doing is you're joining that person in that energy. You're saying, "I see you, I validate you, I see that you have that energy. And you know what? I'm going to join in with you in that process." So in other words, you're not alone anymore in your anxiety, and you're allowing the person to feel that they're seen, and that oh wait, this person is seeing me and he's not judging me. In fact, a big part of paradox is it's really client-centered therapy to a certain degree. It's actually client-centered therapy on steroids.
I think what you're saying is that you're making the person feel seen by actually encouraging what is evident that they need to be doing. So I see that you're kicking your leg. That tells me that you need to be kicking your leg. I don't have to go into all kinds of interpretations or exploration of that according to Pearls, right?
Right.
Instead, let me just acknowledge that you need it. And since you need it, let me encourage you to do it and do it more. And by doing so, I'm somehow connecting or attaching with the person in their need.
Correct. Correct. And in the process, they end up expelling that energy so they can move to that next level. Rather than if they're trying not to be anxious,
Mhm,
you get a sense now their energy is going into not being who they really are.
mhm.
Okay.
And what is that? And what is that? What effect does that have?
Well, it just means that they're going to squelch the energy. They're going to keep pushing that
So
energy down.
they're creating more invalidation of the self, which
Correct.
just generates more shame or lack of acceptance.
right? Which they may be doing all the time anyway, which is, they're trying to be
But it's counter therapeutic, is the point.
correct. That's correct. So a lot of times in a paradox intervention, I simply I'm with the client basically in the here and now, and I'm not judging the client. I try to get out of my judgments, and I try to see, okay, where is your energy? Let's flow with the energy. I'm going to encourage you to flow with that energy and allow the person to move to that next level of whatever that energy is expressing.
Okay, so that's you're describing the here and now process that Fritz Perls used, which was the Gestalt process, which was to see what's here in the room now, not go any further. Don't go beyond it forward. Don't go beyond it backwards. Just be with it and encourage its presence. Now, can you explain to me? So that's only one form of, I guess what you might call prescription. Can you explain to us what's precipitating what's the theory that's precipitating this intervention? What is it that is therapeutic for the client? How is the therapist assisting in that therapeutic process?
Okay, well, this is one of the counterintuitive parts of paradox. There's a lot of way back, by the way back when paradox was first came out, there was no talk of attachment. Nobody really had any idea what attachment was about. What is it? um Later, and people would try, you had the initial people who were doing paradox were Fritz Perls and Virginia Satir and Mnuchin. um and people would watch the videos, and they couldn't explain exactly what was going on. They knew something was happening, but they didn't know what. And then they would take it frame by frame, and amazingly, they still couldn't figure out what it was. It turns out that what it was that all if you even if you watch those videos now, you'll see that they simply attach with the clients that they're with, and I call that entering the system. So if you're working with a couple and you enter the system, what that means is that you basically you join with the wife, you join with the husband, and in joining with each of them, you become a third wheel. You become part of that system. And if you do it right, what it means that if you create yourself, if you actually enter the system of three is different than the system of two. Okay, which means that the whole system acts differently.
Mhm.
Usually, what happens in therapy, the therapist is usually on the outside, meaning that, okay, they're going to talk to the wife and they're going to talk to the husband, and they're going to try to get the husband and the wife to talk together. The two of them are going to talk together, and the therapist is somehow removed from the process. It turns out that when change happens, accidentally or not, the therapist actually entered the system. And when the couple leaves because they've entered the system, that means that when they go home, that the therapist has somehow gone home with them. So, in other words, one of the famous things that paradox is known for is prescribing the symptom, right? That makes no sense. Okay. Here you have a couple who is arguing and they're bickering, and you try the usual. You try CBT. You try behavioral approach. Maybe there's rewards if you don't bicker. Those are all very logical. And to tell you the truth, if it works, that's fine. But sometimes you're working with a couple and they come in and they're bickering and they're bickering, and you're trying to get them to communicate. And in paradox, what we say is, okay, we're going to prescribe the symptom. What's this? What are we going to prescribe? When you go home, you know what, wife, you're going to nag your husband, and your husband's going to complain about his in-laws. He's going to complain about your parents, and then you guys are going to argue. That's what you're going to do. But wait a minute, we're doing that already. So why are you telling us to do that? And what you're doing is, yes, you're telling them to do that, what they're already doing, but now you have become part of the system. You have entered the system because now you're there in the room with them.
So how does it help that you've entered the system?
So now there's three of you. So now when they go home, right? And it might even not even be a conscious thing, but all of a sudden, like you told the wife to nag the husband, you got to pick your socks up off the floor. You can't be leaving them on the floor. But you've given that as an instruction to do. So it's not that the wife is doing it. Usually the wife just happens to do it on her own. She forgets, and she's telling him to, that she's nagging about the socks, and he forgets that he bothers her about her parents. But now the fact that you've instructed them to do it, there's that little fraction of a second where just as she's saying, you got to pick up. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, how did like there's almost like you're there in the room with them, and that in and of itself shifts the dynamic.
Okay. But let's talk about it in a one-on-one environment. Okay. So it's you and the client, and you're instructing the client, prescribing the symptom. Uh, so I understand we're giving the client permission to do it. How is that therapeutic, though? How does that create shift? Or somebody else might ask the question, how does that create behavior change?
Right. So what happens is that underneath, it's an interesting process. Again, is in working paradoxically, it may sound strange, but I personally have absolutely no interest in changing behavior. Wait a minute, come on, yeah, but wait a minute, you're a therapist. You have to be interested in changing behavior, right? And the answer is no, because the reality is I can't change anybody's behavior. Okay, if they want to do a certain behavior, they're going to do that behavior. I'm not going to convince them. I'm not going to give them a cookie to reward them. So, from my perspective, what I can do as a therapist is in joining that client, I can help that client realize on an underlying level that they're not alone. Meaning that most of us, our clients, we all have a certain sense of who I think I am. And as soon as as a good therapist, you can enter the client even as an individual and help them recognize that they're not alone. Um, and it turns out that it's very powerful because clients kind of insist in their aloneness. It's this is who I am, and very often they want us to confirm that this is who they think they are. But in terms of entering the system, they find out that it's very disconcerting to have somebody to enter your system. If we can do, I'd like to show the video with the borderline, give people a sense of what that might look like.
Okay, so I just want to I want to try to reflect what in my own words what I think I'm hearing you say, or how I've conceptualized it over the years. When you talk about a client feeling alone, so you've used the term in the past. You used to use the term abandonment trauma, right?
Correct.
I often I think what you're referring to is what I call the shame factor, which is it's okay for me to have anxiety because we all have anxiety, or it's okay for me to have anger because we all have anger. It only becomes a problem when I start to hate myself because of my anger, or I start to hate myself because of my anxiety. Or in other words, I feel ashamed that I am different. I feel ashamed that I get angry where other people seem to be cool. And that shame factor is where what I think you're describing as abandonment trauma. I feel all alone, which probably has its roots somewhere deeper. And what you're looking to do vis-a-vis paradoxical interventions is to actually join the person lest they feel alone, so that they feel, um, wait a minute, what I'm doing that I thought was bizarre or weird or wrong, somebody's actually encouraging me and sitting through it with me almost as if it's normal. So I have to now kind of second think whether I'm actually weird or bad or shameful. It can just like classical validation works, right? When I share something with somebody and they're like, "That's really upsetting. I can't believe." And it's like, "Okay, I know I'm okay because somebody else understands it," right?
Right, right,
That's
right.
that's that's what I think I'm hearing you say. The abandonment trauma or the sense of aloneness or the sense of shame in my behavior becomes mitigated when somebody actually encourages me to do it and recognizes that I must do it. for whatever reason I have to do it. Is that how it's working?
Yeah, yeah, that's part of it. Definitely part of it. Yeah, the other part is that there's attachment, and the opposite of attachment is abandonment.
Mhm,
The reality of our existence is that we are absolutely attached in the universe. That's who we are. We are attached.
mhm.
But we all have different levels of abandonment, meaning that we all live in a certain illusion. It's literally an illusion that we are separate and isolated in this world. And in our mind, we think that we're separate and like nobody's going to see us, nobody's going to know. But the absolute reality is that we are attached. So really, what I do in Paradox is I simply lift the veil of the person's belief in their own isolation and attachment. That, oh, you believe you're isolated and attached? No, I can predict what you're going to do. I already know what you're going to do. You know what I'm going
What
to
do you
do.
mean when you say that we're all actually, in reality, we're all attached and connected? What do you mean
It's
by
just
that?
it's just the reality of our existence. We feel we have no idea to the extent that we are attached to the universe. We're just attached. It's like in those moments that you feel alone and isolated, that's your own mistaken perception of where you're at. And in terms of addiction, it's like people who struggle with addiction, they're looking to feel soothed and to feel they end up connecting to the alcohol, they end up connecting to the whatever that addiction is. But what they're really striving for is the connection with other people. But along the way, as a youngster, as a child, there was that moment that you suddenly realized, oh man, mommy's not here for me, daddy's not here for me, and we get stuck, literally stuck in that illusion of being separate and alone in the world and in the universe.
Well, that's literally an abandonment trauma.
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
amazing. Okay, so let's start with one little clip. This is one of my favorites ever. Though the video looks like it was taken in the 1800s, but the content is great and quite entertaining. And let's see if anybody here in the participants can appreciate it. And then
Okay, so before you show it, let me just
yeah,
set it up a little bit. My antennas go up when a client is demanding me to do something, right? Because as soon as the client has a demand on me to be something or to do something or to get them to change, or in this case, she's demanding me to confirm that she's a borderline. And in my mind, like, why would somebody do that? And I'm thinking, okay, if I get to say that she's a borderline, that gives her an excuse, because now whenever she's going to act out, she's going to say, oh, the therapist said I was borderline, which allows me to act crazy now. So I don't give her that license to do that. And you'll notice that in most of the video, she's going to be slouched. She's not really, she's in her body, but she's not in her body. She's on the couch, but she's leaning back. She's not really, she's not like standing up per se. And what I want you to notice is that there is one point in the video that she finally sits up. Okay, that she finally comes into her body. And in my mind, that was the moment of success, because it meant that she had to own something within herself rather than being this person who wants everybody else to
you're
do
giving
for
too
her.
much away. You're giving too much away. Like, we got to leave some. We got to leave
Okay.
room for interpretation.
I got it.
All
Okay.
right, let's take a look. Here we go.
Yeah.
So all this is not doing really well with my personality disorder because I make really bad choices and I tend to make what's the right word? Not better choices when I'm in a bad situation.
Well, you talk about personality disorder. What exactly do you define as your personality disorder?
Borderline personality disorder.
Borderline. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Impulsive, makes bad choices.
Are you suicidal?
No.
That's not.
Yeah, but borderline personality disorder isn't suicidal at all times in your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think that I have borderline personality disorder?
I don't know.
You're the therapist. You're supposed to be diagnosing me.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, borderline personality, part of manipulative behavior is to threaten suicide. And
You're not threatening suicide right
well, then I don't know if you're borderline. If you want to be borderline, you got to get on the stick. I'm trying to help you here.
I feel like I have borderline personality disorder.
Okay, well, you may be stressed out. You may not make good decisions. Who told you that you had borderline personality disorder?
When I was in the hospital last time, they diagnosed me with potential borderline personality, and then they sent me to DBT training.
Wow, I like that, potential borderline personality disorder.
They said that I had characteristics of.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I mean, if you're impulsive, borderlines can be impulsive. They get stressed out and they're impulsive, yes. Okay. When you say impulsive, what do you do that's
I
impulsive?
told you that whole flipping thing, like there's that book out called I Love You or I Hate You, Don't Leave Me.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds exactly like me.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like me to a T. In fact, I don't want to read the book
Mm-hmm.
because I'm scared to read the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm afraid that I'm going to find myself in the book too much. I just want to know if I have a borderline personality disorder.
If you want it, yeah.
If I want it, that's not what I want.
Well,
I want to know if I have it or not.
Yeah, you can have it if you want.
Where's the DSM?
I don't have it. You just have to work on it a little bit. Now, if you want to work on something, you can work on having a borderline personality.
I don't want to have it.
Now that's something that you can.
I don't want to have it.
yeah.
I just want to know if I have it.
You put a little effort in, and you can be a star.
Well, what do you think from knowing me so far?
I don't know. It's a little iffy if you're not suicidal.
Well, I have been suicidal before.
Before. And what have you done recently?
Nothing.
You call yourself a borderline? Huh? Huh? You should be ashamed of yourself. Ashamed.
You really use this as
Borderline.
as training, please. I'm scared. I'm scared. This is your training.
Well, I'm just saying that it is what it is.
I'm scared if people are going to go off this video to learn how to be a therapist.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could we get some participant reaction to this? I do see what you're saying actually at the end. You talk about how she straightened up, but she also became more serious. You know what I'm saying? She became more she was just being like silly and immature and flirtatious. And then at the end she actually straightened up and seemed to become more
She was more present.
real, more present,
She
more
was more
genuine.
real. Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions on that? Or is that what you guys all do? Okay, let's go, Shandel.
Hi. My question is that you put such a big emphasis of suicidal attempts if she's not going to learn what she has to do in order to get the title she so desires.
Right. Well, if the question I asked her is, do you have suicidal ideation? Had she said to me, yes, I have suicidal ideation, I never would have gone down the road that you just saw. because that meant that she's in a much more serious place. She's really contemplating hurting herself. When she said that she wants to kind of be borderline, but she's not suicidal, to me, it said to me that she's going to use the title of borderline as a way to be manipulative. Um, so I just kind of turned it around back to her that well, wait a minute, if you're going to be borderline, borderlines are usually they're suicidal. I'm kind of instructing her. If you get a sense, I'm instructing her how to be borderline, which is kind of crazy, right? That's not what you would expect. But if you get a sense by me instructing her how to be borderline, it's like now she can't say I'm suicidal anymore, at least not to me. Because it's like if she says I'm suicidal, it's like, oh yeah, we talked about that, and I gave you that suggestion. So now it's kind of like we're in this together. That you're telling me that you're suicidal. So I kind of, in a sense, I took that away from her. I took away that manipulative piece to say, oh, I'm suicidal right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. It's very interesting.
Should we go to another clip?
If you like.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about that particular clip? Or we move on to the next one?
You don't want to show the kids with the first clip of the kids. What I like about the first clip of the kids, by the way,
Were you
is
talking
that
about the PSP
the
clip?
the PSP, yeah.
You'd
And that,
rather do that one?
yeah. I mean, I think it gives a sense, like it's kind of like it's a group intervention, and you can get a sense that the group has a personality, and you can really get a sense of me entering into the group. In fact, if you watch this video without the understanding that I only do one thing, because it looks very complicated what I'm doing if you don't know what I'm doing. But all I do is I don't judge the kids. All I do is I just enter the system. And one of the ways I'm trying to think of how to explain what's happening is, in physics, there's a thing called string theory. And string theory is like there's strings attached to all these, everything in the universe, there's little strings. There was a point that as I was preparing to go into this group, I had to have a string to every person in the group. There were like 11 kids, 11 boys in the group. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how am I going to indicate to each of these kids that I'm attached to them without being threatening? And you'll notice in the video that I come up with a chart, and on the top of the chart is everybody's name. And I go through each name one by one by one by one. It seems like it's like, why are you doing that? It seems like a waste of time. But the actual thing that I was doing is I was letting each kid know that I'm attached to you. I see you. I'm connected to you. I validate you. And you'll notice that in the video, like I say, is what I actually become is a coach. In the first video, I'm kind of entering into the coach business, and I'm joining them, but they don't expect it. They're expecting. They know that I'm coming in and I'm supposed to tell them to change, and you guys can't be doing this anymore, and you got to straighten up. That's what they're expecting. But I don't do that.
Let me just give some background to that. This is a cottage for juvenile delinquents, right?
Yeah.
With problem sexual behavior, and they've been acting out amongst each other, and so Dr. Kaplan was called in to do some kind of intervention, and of course they're all expecting to get a musser schmooze, to get yelled at and lectured about how they have to change their behavior, and he'll probably come up with some brilliant behavior modification plan that will make everybody stop doing what they were doing before.
Right. Which, by the way, you'll see that these have no investment that there, but they have. You can see that they don't want
The
to.
kids could care less. They could care less.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay. So should we go for it? We're going to do number one.
Yeah.
Okay. These by the way, these videos are available online on YouTube. chugging.
Kaplan here to introduce the first of a series of
See if we can get it to
attend these meetings. Sexy dance, the anonymity would be the.
okay.
Now, I don't want to say that they were outright hostile, but I'll let you be the judge of that for yourself. So, one of the words that I got was that there's a sexual talk in the cottage, and guys fooling around. All right. Now, guys, I know that I was when I was here last time. Basically, what I want to do today is basically we're going to create a list of what guys' behaviors are and like how much they do it. Because as much as you guys do it, we don't know. It's called in psychology this thing called a baseline. Right. So what we're looking for here is the baseline of people's behavior. Now, since we are videoing the presentation here, I'm not going to use anybody's name, any of their actual names. So what I did was actually put either a person's nickname or just their initials up there. All right. So.
What else? Mass up there? Fuck that. Down.
Just your nickname. So we don't know your real name.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, they put emo. They got Juju. They got Juju. Oh my God.
Just your nickname.
I'm a question. A homosexual guy called me that.
What?
I don't like when people call me that.
Well, which one's on your...
You're homosexual then. Nemo.
Hurricane Shady, Pookie, all right?
Pookie. Who told me like that next to me? Dead right.
Cream hair Delaware, who's cream hair Delaware?
How you don't even laugh?
We got Nemo, Days,
When you say that shit.
D.I., you know who you are,
You forgot Juju.
and JGS.
Now you gotta put Juju up there.
What?
Juju.
That's up there already.
All right, so I got a question. I got a question for you guys.
Not that one.
All right, so my question is, all right, because and I actually talked to Hurricane about this. What we're gonna do?
Quiet.
All right. So whatever you were doing 3 weeks ago, whatever you were doing 2 weeks ago, whatever you were doing a week ago, all right. I don't want you
Come
to
in,
change
Daniel.
I don't want you to change anything. All right. So I got a question. All right. So I got a question.
Hey, look.
Daniel.
All right. Okay. All right. I guess
I'm real empty right now, Henry.
he didn't like
I'm
that.
real empty right now.
All right. So I got a question. So who in the cottage? Who's the best person in the cottage? Who person?
Me.
All right. Well, you know what? All right. You know what? We're gonna find it out during this week because we're gonna put cursing. All right. We're gonna put cursing.
I can name all of them right now for you.
All right. I got another question. All right. So but again, we're gonna find out during the week.
Oh, shut up. You're not because all people left right now. Shut up.
All right. Because a number of guys put up their hand for who's best at cursing, right? But we're gonna find out during the week who really is the best. All right. Because we're not gonna change anything. All right. You guys are gonna do what you always do. All right.
Do
That's
it.
what the plan.
Do what you do.
That's right. Do what you do best. So we're gonna work together, guys. Okay. So we're all gonna work together in this project.
As a team.
Right? It's a team. Exactly. We're gonna be on the same team. All right.
Because I'm agreeing with this nigga. I'm real.
Now, my next question is, who is the best sexy dancer and wall humper? All right. All right. We'll find out.
Pookie. Fuck Juju and whoever. And Hurricane.
All right.
Pookie. Yo, look at me, son.
All right.
Sexual dancer.
Sex dancer.
Sex dancer. Yo, he didn't even put sexual dancer. He put sex dancer.
All right. Now I know when you guys play sports. All right. Who is the best butt slapper? All right.
David.
may say,
I mean,
some people may say, well, Dr. Kaplan, you're trying to get me into trouble because you're going to get me on restriction, right? All right.
Dr. Kaplan,
So
can
what I'm
I ask you
telling
something? How you telling, how you influencing us? That way, if therapy is not helping, how you gonna influence us to do the same thing? Telling us do what we do best. First of all, I just realized your theory. You telling us to do what we do best, for hopefully we'll stop. That's your little theory.
Well, no,
I read it in a book. I read it in a book. You telling us to do the same thing?
Don't.
Nah, you telling the truth. No, you right though.
Juju.
That's what he's doing.
All right, you know.
Stop calling me Juju.
Whatever you want to think, you can think, okay?
I know.
But the things I know.
I heard about your theory.
I know that you
You're telling
really
us to
can't
do the
stop.
same thing so we can stop, right?
What?
We can hopefully stop. That is your theory.
Well,
Shut up.
I didn't expect you to stop. Because I know that you're good at what you do.
Yo, don't
and to tell you the
get out of here
truth,
with- yo,
if
stop
you really-
playing with
what
me.
we're going to do is we're going to make believe that I didn't even come in today, all right? So during the week, all right, you guys just do whatever you do regular, all right? But you come on, you know how to do what you do,
Yo, get out of here, yo.
all right? What we're gonna do is I'm gonna come back next week. All right, same time, same place. Come back next week, and and during the week, the staff is gonna write down each time you guys do your, whatever you're an expert in.
Hey, yo.
They're gonna write it down. All right, all right.
Yo, he's playing y'all. Y'all don't even realize that's how stupid y'all. He's stupid. He's retarded.
So Julie,
Yo, y'all sitting down watching him play. Y'all laugh. Good.
Julie, listen. If you figured it out, that's good. So just do what you normally do.
Get out of here with that.
All right, so I'm gonna come back next week.
Yeah,
All right?
next week, same
And
time,
staff,
same place,
and staff will have a chart, and like they're gonna check off.
I'm gonna
like
be, I'm gonna have
what you guys
the
do.
whole chart full of curses. That's
All right, that's fine. Whatever, if that's what you normally do.
So they can't take no money away from me.
Chart up, and next time we're gonna fill it in. All right.
Yo, that is very low, man.
All right. So hang in it, and I'm gonna see you
And y'all
guys next
happy
week.
I got your names up there? Like,
Exactly. He just called you a sexual dancer, called you a sexual butt slapper. Y'all sitting there laughing like it's cool, man. It's not funny. I'm mad at myself for doing that gay shit too. I'm mad at myself, and I'm gonna try to stop that shit, but this nigga won't come back. Y'all gotta work with it too. I gotta try to do that stuff. He won't come back. Yo, he's calling us expert in homosexual activities. And y'all laughing like this, like we're real homos. Are we really homos or what?
You know that when he come, why don't you do it? Why don't you even do anything? You're not here. You don't mean when I do all that.
You're fucking hypocrite. I ain't being a hypocrite, but I want to stop though, cause I'm getting mad at the way he's playing y'all and myself. Y'all laughing. I know. So let's try it. But y'all laughing more than me though. Y'all laughing more than me like it's all good.
Julian, I know right after this meeting, like 2 hours later, like you was shout, you was just like, man, gay.
You too. All of us. You're not here for one person. If he was here for one person.
Rather than struggle with them.
Wow. So I always love this video when I watch it. And what I'm hearing more and more is the tremendous resistance to this one kid who's really desperately protesting what you're doing. He's saying y'all don't realize he's playing with y'all, right? And he's just going, he's like, don't listen to this guy. Don't continue your behavior. If you continue, you're going to make him right. And then he's going to get us all in trouble. Guys, there's something wrong with this. Y'all got to stop doing it, right? And he's like really protesting.
Yeah, he was the leader. He was the leader of the group.
And he's not down for this. He's like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Now he doesn't know what to do. He's in a bind because he doesn't want to stop the behavior, but he doesn't want to continue the behavior.
Right. So if you watch it, it's like, all right, well, I'm telling them to do it, but really I don't want them to do it. It's like that would be a manipulation. Really, all I did is like, I'm not invested in whether they do the behavior or they don't do the behavior, because my investment was just to say, guys, I'm here, I'm joining the group, whether you like it or not, I'm part of the group now, and we're going to plan that you're just going to do the same thing you always do. And just the very fact that I'm like number 12 of the group, because, you'll see if we watch the next video, like I become the coach, right? So like as a coach, I'm like trying to get the team, riled up, for the big win. But that's all I'm doing is I'm just joining the group. I'm just entering the group without trying to figure out, the right thing to say, the wrong thing to say. This is your pattern. You're cursing, you're butt slapping, you're sexy dancing, and we're just going to plan that we're going to continue to do it. And you can get a sense that the whole room is like there's an electricity in the room where, wait, we don't want to do this because the guy is telling us to do it. We want to do something against it.
And the contrast from the beginning, where they were all just yelling you down, to suddenly being extremely engaged and almost panicking in the process, was also a very deep engagement. Again, as I'm processing this video for the 10th time that I'm watching it, right? There was a great shift in their engagement with you, and going from completely mocking you to taking you very seriously and getting into a great debate as what to do with this Jewish man crisis that's here, right?
Yeah.
Now, Rivka, if you don't mind unmuting, you said it's a win-win situation, right? And then Shlomi rightfully point out that this is what's called a win-win double bind, right? What do you mean that it's a win-win? What is the win-win here? If you can unmute and just share with us, what do you see as the
But I
win-win?
understand, yeah, it's a little noisy here. We'll see how, I really appreciate this. It's even for teachers, because I'm also in the teaching field. I find it's such a good way of just accepting the behavior, and then everyone's going to be with
But what do you mean when you say
it.
it's win-win?
Win-win, as Dr. Kaplan will win, and that they will win by, if they do it, they win. If they don't do it, they also win, right?
Excellent.
Right.
That's a double bind. That's the
That's
double
right.
bind. Excellent. Go ahead. You want to explain it?
I didn't know this was from yeah.
The double bind is that if they stop their behavior, then it's what Dr. Kaplan describes as increases their self-esteem, because they tap into free choice, right?
Right.
And they start acting with more mindfully, with more choice, which is an increase in their self-esteem, or their feeling like they have a grip on themselves. And if they don't stop the behavior and they continue, then they get congratulated by him. So then it deepens the attachment and the connection, and makes them feel secure and safe and not ashamed of continuing their behavior, which again will enable them to choose better eventually. That's the win-win double bind.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Yoel, and then I want to go to the second video. Go ahead, Yoel.
Yeah, just a quick point. When one of my professors was helping us understand joining, they said the goal of the first session is to get to the second session. And I just saw how, by the end, these kids are they're ready for that second session.
Absolutely.
Right. They walk out of that room. They're invested in proving me wrong. Right. They really want to, and actually what ended up happening is they monitored each other to stop the behavior, because you can imagine that one guy or the other guy would forget, and you'd have a third guy say, no, don't do that.
And I did hear them. I found that the group became very cohesive, which is also an attachment improvement, right? They became very cohesive, and they started to work together as a team. Like, how are we strategizing? Instead of it becoming my behavior and my behavior and my behavior, it became, how are we strategizing to do something here? Which I thought was its own attachment surprise, paradox.
Yeah. Now, as we set up the next video, just to say that you would think, that you'll see that the boys end up pulling back and not doing the old behavior. And you would think, if I was a good therapist, I would say, hey guys, look, you could do it. You don't have to act out. But because my investment is simply to join, I give a very different.
In other words, we would expect you to say, "Aha! You see, if you want to control yourself, you can." And
that's what you'd expect, exactly.
Sort of promote the success right? Like a standard teacher in a classroom might do.
Right.
Apparently. All right, let's see where the beginning of this is. Somewhere here. Dr. Kaplan, as always, making trouble.
Hmm.
The reality is that my intent is to avoid a power struggle with them. I do this by joining the client through their own behavior. The process of joining with the residents is counterintuitive. And what's more absurd is that I'm trying to convince them to continue their old behavior. To the rational mind, this makes no sense. However, a good paradoxical intervention will always come across as absurd, as this freezes the logical mind from interfering.
Okay? So what we talked about last week was that we were working on a project.
No, it ain't no project for you.
And part of the project was that we were going to create a baseline of everybody's behavior in the cottage. All right? And then certain people were more expert at certain things. All right? And recall, some of the behaviors that we had was that some people were better at cursing. All right? We had sex dancing. All right? Butt slapping. All right? Inappropriate comments. Sex noises, staring.
Wow.
So I want to know, like, from your perspective, from you guys, then we'll get the staff's perspective after. Like, how many people did that cursing this week?
Like, we're going to tell you.
Well, if you don't tell me, then the staff is going to tell me. So somebody's going to tell me.
Good. I like that marker.
What?
I like that marker. Don't leave it around.
All right. Guys, I'm looking for a little participation here. Come on.
No.
Come on. If we're going to work on the project together, there's something we're doing all together, all right? This is a project that the cottage is doing as a group. All right?
You see that?
All right? And we're all working on it. We're all doing our best. All right? So let's just get some numbers here. Who is the best at cursing this week?
I don't know.
Guys, come on. What about sexy dancing?
We don't know.
So we're gonna have to get the staff involved here.
Yes,
Mrs. Perkins, I'm gonna ask you how well did the boys do cursing this week?
Well, we only had 5 residents this week.
Little shit.
This weekend. And I remember I went and tallied up some, and it was, what's the name? I don't see
You got Hurricane, Shady, Pookie, Juju, Cream Hand, Dollar Bill.
Look, that's in certain movie, he said cream hand. She started laughing. You like that shit.
Dollar Bill, Juju.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the whole.
In general?
Yeah, in general.
In general.
All right. So how many times would you say that, let's say, Juju was cursing?
Juju, I think I got like 4 times.
4? That's it? 4?
Yeah, and cream.
4?
For that one day that I was here.
You gay?
One day that I was here, I tallied 4.
4?
Yes, the Juju.
All right.
He thought we were going to cook like 20
I'll put 4 down. I think he's got more potential than that. He's got much more potential than 4.
I just put down 4. You mad. You mad.
Creamy, and it was 2.
Come on.
For the one day.
These are not numbers.
One day that I was here.
Luke heard her 2.
Sumo gang.
And you acting so right down with
Cream Hand only gets 2?
That's it? I guess I'm the only one that tallied.
All right, Mrs. Ward. I'm very disappointed in you guys. All right?
You didn't do that?
I'm disappointed because you guys are not living up to your potential.
Are you homosexual?
All right?
Are you
You're not
homosexual?
listening to me. You're not listening.
I'm listening.
Yo, you fucking fruit. You fucking fruitcake, you fucking faggot. I'm enjoy you, son. That's some G shit. Nah, cause he's that saying that we not living up to our potential. We supposed to do that we supposed to bust that?
This is
We
what
supposed to have sex noises?
This is not.
Don't say you
This is
got
what
kind of
you
gay
guys
shit is that?
normally do.
Do you
I
really serious?
didn't make this up. I'm not making this up. This is the cottage. This is what you guys do in the cottage. All I'm asking you to do is what you always do. Right? I ain't
Basically, you're not here 100% of the time. So basically, you saying that everybody do this, so you stereotyping right now.
I'm saying that this is a general thing that the cottage does. I'm just saying that
you do that shit when you home, right?
I'll be honest with you. That these numbers are not reflective of.
Well, you want to see 10 up there, right? 10 or 12, right?
Well, that's what the norm is in the cottage. Yeah. So we're gonna organize things a little bit more. All right, and we're gonna I'm gonna have to assign people to do what they do. All right. Now you guys know what you're supposed to be doing, but you know.
Oh, you get it.
I cannot force people to participate if they don't want to participate. All right. All right. Because I'll be honest, I think that Nemo, who does best sex noises, he's not participating. I can't make him participate. Right? If he doesn't want to do it, I can't make him do it. All right? So my question is, if he's not going to do sex noises, do we have a volunteer?
No.
To do
Why do you want me to do sex with him?
So you get on camera. Always do. I just want you to do what you normally do.
You don't do that all the time.
But you don't do none.
Now, Julia, he want to hear it so I can put that shit on camera and make some tapes.
Come on. That's not the cottage. That's not the cottage I know. I know you guys have the potential, and you're not.
And you like little, Sam, you like little boys, you like little boys. Are you trying to help us, or are you trying to just keep doing it? What the fuck are you doing?
I'm trying to organize this so that we have a baseline of behavior, okay? And then we can look if the behavior is going to go up.
He's trying to see if y'all gay. He's trying to make you turn gay.
This is not
fucking faggot.
What we're looking at here. So you're an expert at being inappropriate.
Yo, what are you, a psychologist? Or are you a teenage homosexual psychologist? To keep doing little teenage kids homosexual. Take that shit to the village, man. Stop playing with that.
All right. So guys, what I want you to do, you see, Juju's doing a very good job now. All right? And if you guys would participate as much as he was, then we would be moving along in this project. See, Juju's participating.
You're doing this fucking project by yourself.
And you guys are just sitting there. All right?
I've seen this nigga
Come
out.
on. Juju's participating.
Mr. Collins, you're in the car.
Juju's participating. All right? And you guys can do the same. All right? So, Juju, I want to thank you. All right? And I want you to keep up the job during the week.
Turn the key in the ignition, boom.
All right? All right? So I'm going to be back next week. It might not be on Tuesday. It might be Wednesday, Thursday. All right? But, you know, with Juju's help and with other guys who are going to, kind of rile you guys up, we're going to get back on track with this. All right?
You would get shot in the street.
By literally accepting their original patterns, I have no problem insisting on creating a baseline for their behavior. Of course, the whole premise is absurd. However, the result is that without me convincing or rewarding them to change, they take it upon themselves to spontaneously, yes, spontaneously undo their sexualized patterns. Now they're in big trouble. In video 3, they will have to face the consequences of their actions.
Right. So I think they did more cursing in that 5-minute segment than they did in 2 weeks of being in the cottage. But they seem to be a little thrown off and confused.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm supposed to say, look, oh, guys, you see, you don't have to do that behavior. And imagine, had I said, look, you guys can change and you're different. What would have happened is they would say, oh, okay, we got it. You didn't want us to do the behavior. We did what you wanted. Okay, now we got it. Now we're going to go back and do what we want to do. So just the fact that I'm kind of like, again, I'm like the coach at the big game. Come on, guys, I'm disappointed in you. You could do better. And they're like, what is he? What's this guy talking about?
Any questions or comments on that one? Is this making sense? And this is like a really extreme form of the paradoxical work. This is not working one-on-one with a client in session, where it's often a little bit more subtle, a little bit more, I shouldn't say subtle, but a little bit more relaxed. Here you have a lot of resistance. There's a ton of energy in the room. You have to sort of ignore a lot. There's a lot that you're managing throughout this process. So
Quick question.
who's that? Rivka's raising her hand. That didn't sound like
Oh,
Rivka.
no, it's Yoel. But if Rivka had her hand up, let her go ahead.
Okay, Rivka, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I'm just curious. Do you ever have the risk of the client feeling foolish? Like,
That's a good question. I mean, when I do an intervention, I have to be in my mind. I often say to myself, "Am I mocking the client right now? Am I saying something to insult the client? If I feel that on any level I'm mocking the client, then I don't say it. Okay, because my intent is to join. My intent is to be
yeah,
because,
in the video, I definitely see the joining and they totally went with it. There was like
right.
this alignment, but the paradox has that risk of someone feeling a little.
And in fact, that paradox is notorious because people look at that and they go, "Oh, it gives me license to insult the client,
But also,
Sarcasm or
to
something.
mock the
one second.
client."
But also, there are clients do feel insulted because they can't actually wrap their heads around believing and accepting that you're sincere. So there is an element of like, why in heaven's name would you tell me to do something like that? You must be mocking me. And you kind of have to hold your ground there. That happens, I think, regularly. And you kind of have to hold your ground and demonstrate your sincerity and say, look, um, uh, I, I know you once used this line. You taught this to me, Dr. Kaplan, uh, to say um, one of the things that we do in Paradox is we want to increase people's self-esteem and help them become good at what they do. And what happens in therapy so often is the therapist will try to get you to do something that you're not good at, and you keep failing at it and feeling terrible. So instead, what the baseline here is for us to really, before we start working on your behavior, is to get you to become really expert and good at what it is that you do best. Okay, and then that's a little pitch that you make to them that even though it doesn't make so much sense, but it kind of makes a little sense and it puts them at ease. And then you can jump into the intervention. I love that. I use that.
Right.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
So you said that you were not, you do not care if they change. And yet, in this case, you were brought in because there were problems, and your job, it seems, is to get them to change. So, and so far in these two videos, I don't see change in terms of behavior, right? You're telling them to increase. So help me understand that conflict.
Well, what we see in the video is that they came in the first week and they're all over the place and they're laughing and you can get a sense that they have no investment in the sessions that I'm about to do. The second video, they've actually had a week of resisting their sexualized behavior. So they may have done it before, but that's 1 week of not doing it. Okay, so here, if we get to the third video, they actually have 2 weeks under their belt, and that would be the third week where they actually of 3 weeks in a row of not doing their old behavior. What's interesting is what you'll notice is that I don't tell them to change. Okay. I mean, yes, you're right. I'm hired to come in. Obviously, my job is to get them to change. But if I go in and if I'm in the session thinking, okay, how am I going to get them to change? Oh, I'm going to join with them and I'm going to hope that I'm going to tell them to do it, but really I don't want them to do it. Again, that's a manipulation. So there's an element where I myself have to accept that this is the cottage. This is what you guys do. If you notice, there was that section where I was like, it was a heartfelt plea with them. This is what you guys do. Just do what you always do. I was very sincere in that moment because my investment again is just to be involved with them. And I'm the coach, right? As the coach, I'm trying to get you guys to do it better. And their investment is, oh, we're not going to do it. We're out of this. We're backing out of it.
If I can add, right, if I can add to what you say, I think that when Eliot says that he doesn't care that they change their behavior, he doesn't mean that he doesn't care that they change their behavior. He hopes that they'll become more functional people. But I think what he's saying is that the intervention doesn't direct or target, it doesn't take into account that that there's an emphasis on working towards changing the behavior. It only takes into account, right, that we're going to attach and encourage, them to be real and genuine and all that. And that by default, he happens to know that usually changes behaviors.
Right. So my analogy is like if you have a light switch, you might really, if I might say to myself, I really, 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 really want the light to go on, right? But the reality is that I know the light switch in this situation is to attach. So if I attach, I'm confident at this point that the light will go on. Okay, but I'm not. If you get a sense, I'm not invested in I hope the light goes on.
Trying to get the light on.
Right. I'm just going to attach. I'm going to flick the switch, and in flicking the switch, let's see what happens.
All right, it's gonna be a short meeting. Are you coming back next week? It's a short meeting. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. We started out. We were gonna have a project. All right, we were gonna try to work together. All right. And I'll be honest with you. You guys got this sheet over here. My grandmother could do better than this. All right.
Oh, so she's a freak.
All right. You guys. You got a few check marks here, but you guys could do a lot better than that. So what I'm saying is that I don't think that you guys are participating in the way.
It's not. Listen, that's not our fault. Stop. Write that down.
What?
If staff see us, they write it down. Look.
I understand. But when I came in, I was expecting like last week we put on 4, right? I was expecting 40, and I was expecting 30.
Get the fuck out of here.
Not 4.
You want 44. All
right.
Exactly. So you can beat on 40 times our name.
I only wanted what you guys were doing already. We got sexy dancing. We're not getting any of that. All right.
No, you're not getting any of that.
So all I'm saying is that.
So who got the most? Read it.
The most. You got cursing here a little bit. There's nothing going on in sexy dancing. There's nothing with butt slapping.
What slapping?
Sexy.
What's there to be slapping?
Listen, this is just not what you guys are capable of.
So read the names so you can read.
You guys, the consequence of this whole thing, all right?
Hey, Gypsy.
All right? Is that as much as I hate to say it, I have to pull the project off.
Do you have a wife?
I have to call the project off. And the other consequence, and again, you guys brought this on yourself, the other consequence is that this is our last meeting for now. For now. You guys, I know when you want me to come back, you know what you need to do. All right? You guys need to get back on track. And the only way I'm going to come back, here is when
you guys are you telling us to act gay and do sexual?
What the fuck, bro?
you guys know what to do for me to come back. All right? All right? And when you're ready, when you're done with your vacation and you go back to business, the way things were years ago. All right? All right?
Appropriate social behavior. Okay, instead of the old peer pressure that.
Okay, that was it.
So I just want to say that I kept in contact with the cottage for the next 4 months, and over that time there was no problem that they had initially called me in for. It had evaporated. So the intervention was a success.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
Right.
Okay. If anybody has any questions or comments, please raise your hand. Eliot, I promised you that I wanted to ask you questions about other paradoxical interventions other than prescription, which is the one that we saw, where you prescribe the behavior like Fritz Perls showed us, What are some other interventions when doing paradox?
Well, I mentioned earlier exaggerating behavior um, is definitely a paradoxical intervention. Um, it turns out that really most of therapy is really trying to join the client, but generally we try to do it in a logical way where we try to engage the client's logic in trying to join them. In paradox, I look mainly at the behavior itself, and if the behavior is predictable, then I'm going to instruct the client to do what they've been doing all along. Obviously, if people ask about depression, I'm not going to tell somebody, "Oh, you're suicidal. You should be more depressed." Okay, that's not helpful because basically the person's going to walk out and they're going to feel more alone than they did before because now not only do they feel alone, now the therapist is telling them to do more of the depressing behavior. So that's not what I'm going to do with somebody who's depressed. I want to do something more on the lines of Viktor Frankl, where I'm going to look at what has meaning in this person's life, if they have grandkids, if they have children, what gets this person up in the morning? Do they enjoy their job? Are they good at music? Something where they can get self-esteem. I'm going to try to emphasize the self-esteem. But if you get a sense that even in that situation, ultimately I'm trying to raise the client's self-esteem and help them recognize that I'm going to validate what they do well.
Now, can you tell us about one of the interventions that's called prediction? What is prediction?
Prediction is I know what you're going to do. I know what you're going to do. And basically, if I see that a client's done a behavior one time, let's say they've done 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, last week, the client may always say the right thing. Yeah, I know I shouldn't do that behavior. I shouldn't yell at my mother. I really have to stop. And initially, I'm going to go along with that. Yeah, okay, as long as you understand that, yes, you should stop. But if I see over time that the client is continuing to do that old behavior and they give it lip service, yeah, I know I should stop. This week I'm going to stop. My object is to join them, so I'm going to say, listen, let's make a plan, and I want to make a plan that you can do. Why don't we plan? Look, you're going to go home now. Your mother's going to ask you to take the garbage out. She's going to ask you to wash the dishes. You know, and I know that when she asks you to do that, you're going to yell at her. Okay? So why don't we plan together, you and me, that when you go home and she says those magic words, okay, when are you taking the garbage out? When are you washing the dishes? That the plan is that you will yell at her. Now, from the client's perspective, what you want me to do? What? No, but I'm not supposed to do that. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to do it, and you're not, but you know that all along that you go home, she says the magic words, and you're going to yell. So why don't we just plan it together? So what ends up happening is the client walks out, and very often I always emphasize that a good intervention, the client should feel a little confused. Because what that means is that they're reorganizing. There's something going on inside that they're not walking out the same way that they walked in. And in that reorientation, in that reorganization, that means that there's a hopefully a good chance that their behavior will shift. So now when they go home and they walk in and the mom goes, well, when are you going to wash the dishes? When are you taking the garbage out? In that moment, there's that fraction of a second where they might feel like yelling at their mother, but if I did my job right, I'm standing next to the client going, go ahead, yell at her. Go ahead. You always yell at her. Go ahead, yell. Go ahead, yell. But I don't want to yell. Come on, you always yell. But I don't want to yell. Go ahead, you always yell. Go ahead. And
so it's almost like you create a gap from what they would ordinarily react to, or the way they would ordinarily react. There's a little gap in which they sort of contemplate.
It's a fraction. It's a fraction of a second.
Little gap, right? Like Frankel's
yeah,
gap, right?
That's right. That's right.
Space. So
That's
that
right.
little gap already creates a space for something different to happen.
That's right. Now to realize that if I do my job right, I walk into that situation with the client. If I didn't, for whatever reason, if I didn't really make a full connection with the client and he goes home and somehow he leaves me at the door, when the mother says, "Oh, when are you taking the garbage out? When are you gonna wash the dishes?" It's again him and his mother alone in the old dynamic again. It's just the two of them. My intent is that I'm going to be a third wheel, where as soon as I enter that system, the client hopefully knows that I'm there. The mother may not know, but the reality is it's a different system, and in that moment, the client will hopefully do something different.
These interventions work magically with kids because kids coming to therapy are typically resistant. Most kids coming to therapy, or many kids coming to therapy, are either denying the problem or just very resistant. And I did this intervention, I remember years ago when you were actually mentoring me. So we were going through this week by week, step by step. I did this intervention where in a family that there was a tremendous amount of chaotic physical aggression between siblings. And it was like intense physical aggression. The kids were really getting hurt from each other. And I had actually I was doing in homework, so I was working with the child and his siblings, and his older sibling, who was like 14 and he was 12, was really physically beating down on him pretty seriously. And I did this intervention where we discussed what he does, and then I predicted that it's going to happen over the course of the week, X amount of times. And I came back the next week, and the mother reported that miraculously he did not touch him the entire week. She was flabbergasted. So it really, really worked, in that sense. I work a lot less with kids now, so the interventions, I find myself doing them less often just because I simply have less resistance, and it's not always necessary to use a paradoxical intervention. But then at some point, you and I had discussed how really pretty much all of our clients are resistant. They're resistant to change, and so if you put enough thought into it, you probably can use paradox on with most of your clients in most circumstances. You may do it a little bit more seriously and less jokingly with some of them. You can really sometimes build a really nice case why it actually makes sense for them. Like, you and I have bickered about this over the years, where I like to, you like to do it as simply as you do it, and I like to sometimes make it a little bit more complicated and first identify the value of the maladaptive behavior. And once we identify it, I say, aha, so this behavior has been serving you to protect yourself from your mother's rage or whatever it is, right? And it's
Right,
really
right.
served you as a protector. So therefore you should continue this behavior, and let's even step it up. And then you know that you're protected and you're safe from your mother's rage. And then they get a little confused, but there's something that just comes across very sincere about that. It's like, I really got your back on this because it's really protecting you from what feels to you as a catastrophe waiting to happen. And by staying anxious or by staying protective, by keeping those walls up, you stay safe. So let's appreciate that. Let's value that. Let's double down on that. I know you like to just keep it more simple and tell them to continue the behavior.